Drug barons in London are making a 4,000% profit from a particular strain of cannabis imported from South Africa. According to the Institute for Security Studies out there, a vast proportion of the marijuana they grow and sell for a pittance ends up here in the capital. In the second of his special reports, Asad Ahmad has been given exclusive access to the fields where the drug is grown.
There's only one way to get you out of the city and to the open fields of South Africa. This is the first time the South African police in KwaZulu-Natal have agreed to take out a television crew. They're keen to show the vast number of cannabis plantations and why so much is now making its way over to London. Before long, the pockets of cannabis fields are pointed out. They stand out in dark green, looking more dense than the surrounding grass. The cannabis plantations go on and on, too many to count. The pilot decides to land in one, so I can take a closer look. Despite attempts to try and hide the cannabis, it's clearly visible from the air, and as you can see on the ground, it grows to about 2 or 3 meters high. Now, the police sometimes decide to destroy these crops, but even if they do, farmers, they just plant more crops a little bit further along, and then the cycle continues. The amount of cannabis on this one patch is huge. So much is grown, it's easy to work out why it's so cheap and why such large profits can be made in London. The police take us to a village chosen at random where they suspect cannabis is grown and sold to dealers. There's the risk of sniper fire, so officers have to be armed.
I'm just going to take a peek at this bag. Here we go, as you can see.
It's not long before we find a large quantity of cannabis in one of the homes.
This is just going to be bagged.
Yeah.
Smell the cannabis is very distinct.
Okay, you can
right, basically, okay, here you go with the seed.
All cannabis seed?
Yeah, that's right, you can smell it as well.
The seeds are carefully put to one side. They're not worth much here, but back in London, they sell for about £8 each. There's an eerie feeling in the village. Everything has just been abandoned. This is just one of the homes that's been deserted since we arrived by helicopter. The people just left their doors open, ran up to the mountains. They've been watching what we've been doing as the police have gone into their homes, found large amounts of cannabis, as the police have gone into the fields around and seen cannabis being grown. Now, this is just one of hundreds of thousands of villages like this growing huge amounts of cannabis. And a lot of that cannabis is now making its way onto the streets of London.
They're using a carpet here to dry it on here.
Once dried, the cannabis will be packed into 15-kilo bags and put on donkeys to be transported towards the big cities.
Usually they transport it to the centres like Durban or Johannesburg, from where it will be shipped to the UK or to other countries in Europe.
The Zulu villagers continue to watch from the hills. With help from the police, we managed to coax them down to speak to us. I ask why they grow the cannabis. They say they have no choice. It's the only way they can feed themselves. They tell us they get 100 rand for a bag of daka. That's about £10. I asked the officer to tell them that the same amount would cost up to £30,000 in London.
200, 300,000 rand.
The shock was obvious. They had no idea. It was then back to Durban to meet the head of the air wing responsible for the area. He accepts the situation is getting worse.
The bottom line is that there is a massive increase in the amount of good quality marijuana being produced by this country, and it's on its way to the UK. That's a fact. Then you're going to have to deal with it.
The officer believes the solution to the cannabis problem is simple, but there needs to be a lot more international cooperation.
It doesn't require huge amounts of detective work. It's not something which takes vast amounts of intelligent policing. This is quite simply a fact of we know where the daka is being grown. It's in our backyard, it's plain, it's open, it's there for everyone to see. If we can get rid of it at the source, probably hundreds of policemen could be released. They would be able to shift their focus and be used in other areas of police work.
The Institute of Security Studies believe most cannabis in London comes from South Africa as it's targeted by dealers. The reason? Simple. Profit.
Most of the money is made in the UK. South African cannabis traffickers are not making that much money because the price of cannabis is so low here. You find that cannabis traffic elicits so much profit as 4,000% in the UK. So you can see for yourself that most of the money is made in London.
A common way of bringing the drug to the UK is via the ports. The operation is said to be professional and is often used to import harder drugs too. But to crack the long-term cannabis problem, it seems like the British government may have to consider focusing not only on the streets of London, but perhaps also destroying the harvest in South Africa. Asad Ahmad, BBC London News, in Durban, South Africa.
A lawyer in the collapsed